Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Crane, and I am the Program Director for the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. And you are joining us for another Global Industry Spotlight, a conversational series focused on providing resources and insight for the creative entrepreneur. Each week, we talk with different organizations, small businesses, and entrepreneurs who are building the future of the creative economy. We are streaming live out of the Comcast Business Startup Studio, a room designed for Chicago's small business community located at 2112, Chicago's first music, film, and tech incubator. The Global Industry Spotlight today is on Matt Mandrella, Huntsville's music officer. Matt advocates for the city's growing music sector and helps oversee music-related strategic planning initiatives and economic opportunities. Prior to relocating to Huntsville in January 2022, Mandrella worked at the Elvis Presley's Graceland in Memphis, Tennessee. There, he was involved with all aspects of marketing for the iconic Graceland campus and for Graceland Live, a new music venture with Live Nation focused on bringing renowned touring acts to venues at the property. Before working at Graceland, Mandrella spent more than a decade in one of the nation's foremost music cities, Austin, Texas, where he worked for a variety of different venues, festivals, and companies involved with booking and promoting live music across the USA, such as Fun Fest, Mohawk, South by Southwest, and Do512. Mandrella originally hails from the Mobile area and earned his bachelor's degree in marketing from the University of South Alabama. I'm excited to bring Matt into the conversation. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I'm looking forward to this conversation. As a music officer, which I think is an incredible position, there's so much opportunity and things to talk about in terms of how do you build a music city. But before we get into that, I would love to hear a little bit about just your background and kind of, working at Graceland, and then before that, even being in Austin, and how that has prepared you for this job right now.
Absolutely. So I was in college and I played basketball. I had a career-ending knee injury and picked up the guitar and learned pretty soon that you can play 3 chords and get some gigs at bars and everything. So I really dove headfirst into the performance aspect of music. Started a couple bands, went on some like small tours just along the Gulf Coast, kind of, would move to around the Gulf Shores area during the summers because that's where a lot of good like live music gigs were. And then after college, even tried to pursue it full time. Went to Charlotte, North Carolina, because figured it's a bigger city. There's probably more opportunity there, and just wanted to kind of get out of Alabama, having been in there my whole life, like a lot of people do wherever they're from. And so dove head first into performing out there, and then really got kind of burnt out on playing cover songs at bars all the time, and really wanted to focus on original music. And so took about a year and really got some songs and everything together, and said I'm going to move to either Austin or Nashville, because that's where you have to make your career on a stage. And ended up choosing Austin because I had a friend out there who was a good friend from high school who was also looking for a roommate month to month. So there was really no risk, and went out there all ready to take on the world, and went to my first open mic and realized like, I am just not at this level and not going to be at this level. It was very humbling, and then was like, but I love music. And so just decided to dive headfirst into the behind the scenes aspect. Got a seasonal position at South by Southwest that led to my first full-time job running a venue called The Parish in downtown Austin at the time. It recently moved, but arguably the best sounding 450 capacity venue in the country. So ran that venue for a while, and then from there moved on to a local promoter in town who was developing a new festival called Fun Fest, and also managing about 3 or 4 venues as well. And so jumped on as their marketing director on both the festival and venue side, and we grew Fun Fest from a 1-day, 1,000 attended person festival to a 3-day, 18,000 person per day festival. And then that success allowed the opportunity for a company called DoStuff Media to offer me a position to head up business development for their local branch, Do512. If you're in Chicago, Do312, I think, is the Chicago one. So same company.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
And so, and on the forward facing, on the public side, it's like, oh, this is a great website with event calendars, but it's behind the scenes, it's also an agency as well. We produced a ton of events and a lot of like sponsorship activations, to where it's like kind of like that business and consumer facing product as well. So did that for 5 years, and then branched out on my own to start my own kind of like marketing agency that was going well, and got introduced to the new CMO at Graceland at the time through a friend, and kind of pitched them on working for them through my agency. But those conversations eventually developed to, hey, we want to work with you, but we want you to move here and work. And I was like, well, I love Austin. And then they gave me an offer, and the offer was definitely worth at least trying it out. Like, kind of, that was my motto, like, oh, we're going to try it for a year and see how it works. And ended up being there for 3 years. And the fun thing about Graceland was, of course, you're working with Elvis, but I came in specifically to, they had just invested a ton of capital into putting about 200,000 additional square feet of exhibit space and venues across the street from the mansion, with the kind of strategy being like, the Elvis fan base is slowly aging out. And so it always needs to be Elvis's home, but it also needs to be a pop culture center. And so we partner with Live Nation to book a lot of the shows there, and develop a Graceland Live brand. So most of my work there was developing the live music, non-Elvis related event side of the property. And loved that job, loved Memphis, was not looking for another job. And then saw somebody post about the music officer position, and thought it was really interesting, and just was like, wow, this is kind of, and my partner even said, your resume is kind of perfectly built for this. And I was like, yeah, but it's in Huntsville. I haven't been to Huntsville in 20 years. And I can kind of get back to how much it's changed in 20 years in a bit. Right. But long story short, it wasn't that exciting of a place 20 years ago, where now it's insanely different and awesome.
Well, let's get to that. I want to back up a little bit. So, I think one thing that I'm appreciating a lot about people who are involved in developing music sectors within cities are musicians themselves, or started out as musicians. So there's already a passion and an understanding and a want to make the industry better, right? So can you talk a little bit about, it seems like you had quite a successful career in Austin, with, starting out as like, I'm playing in bands, and then I'm running one venue, and then I'm running a couple of venues, and I'm putting together festivals. How did you figure out, like, okay, I'm actually good at this particular thing, which it sounds like from like a branding marketing standpoint, that's where you started to really understand how to build events and be able to bring people. When did you kind of discover that, okay, this is a skill set that works for me?
Wow. That's a good question. I've never really thought of that. I think that, I probably through Fun Fest, maybe a little earlier, like when I took over the parish was in a very, very dire financial situation, losing a lot of money month to month. And basically the new ownership of it came in. The venue kind of came with a property that he purchased and developed into a food and bev restaurant concept downstairs. The parish was upstairs, and basically was like, here's the keys, make it work. And it was facing a very challenging uphill battle, one that I didn't even realize at the time, being so green in the industry. And in 6 months, we turned it profitable, which was a lot of people. I didn't find it that big of a deal. I was just doing my work, but a lot of people were kind of like singing our praises about how quick we had turned it around. And I think that's maybe where I realized it. But then seeing Fun grow, and then seeing just like the brand we were doing, and like the number of volume of shows, we expanded outside of Austin and started doing things in Dallas, Houston, and other markets like San Antonio. And I think there, and then the people that were trying to, even before DoStuff came in, that were interested in potentially me leaving to come and work for them. I think the Fun Fest year, seeing how that grew, probably really drove home that this was my niche, and this is something I needed to do on the biz dev and marketing side.
And what do you think in particular made Fun Fest successful, or what were some of the decisions you made that helped it expand and grow?
I think the branding, a big challenge in doing a festival in Austin is you have Austin City Limits, and, one of the big festivals there, and you have a lot of other mid-sized festivals and small festivals. So trying to like carve your niche, and, we kind of found our audience like right there in the middle, and kind of, we curated that festival from the perspective of it being from a true music fan. Like, what is a festival we would want to go to? We had like championship anarchy wrestling and like a mechanical bull
Right.
and Henry Rollins doing like spoken word in addition to like 3 full stages of music. And really keeping that kind of, we knew our audience because we did a lot of the kind of like indie punk shows through like our 1,000 cap and under venues. So we kind of curated the festival with that audience in mind, and consciously tried to stay away from, like trying to compete with a major festival in your area with a giant promoter that has unlimited resources and can pay for like those big bands like your Mumford and Sons and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Guns N' Roses. We were consciously staying in the middle where our headliners were like the Licky Lees and the Spoons, and trying to find acts that had blown up, but were kind of right there at the beginning of their blow up to where we could still afford them. And at the time, instead of playing daytime slots at like a Lollapalooza, they were getting nighttime slots at Art Fest. And it was just great. The vibe was great. The audience was good. It was like that whole music community. You know how it is when you go to a show, you feel like you're all one. I think we really did a good job in creating that atmosphere.
Yeah, and I have to say, as someone that worked in a music venue, to be able to turn one around in 6 months is very impressive. So, they're definitely, congratulations on that, because that is a tough business, and to be able to connect with the audience and be able to, cover costs and all those types of things, it's a lot. And then to build a festival, I think it's really important. And you made a good point there for entrepreneurs or people who are building music events out there, is that you don't need to be the biggest festival in the city, right? Find your niche, find your place, right? You can still be successful, generate revenue, build income with a smaller festival, and you're not going to be able to compete with like a C3 or Live Nation or something like that. So, all right, so you had this pretty successful, awesome career in Austin, and then Graceland's calling. You go to Graceland. Can you talk about maybe 1 or 2 things that you learned from that experience in particular?
Yeah, the main thing was just about Memphis being Memphis is a really, really challenging live music market. There's a lot of history and a lot of great like music attractions like Graceland, the Stax Museum, Sun Studios, but that there were shows, and this was reiterated even to me from my friends who were talent buyers and everything like in Memphis, and agents who were, and I'd reach out and be like enthusiastic, hey, like I'm here in Memphis, and they're like, great, we want to support you, but heads up, like, that's one of the toughest touring markets in the country. It's just really hard to figure out. There's shows that you think will be a slam dunk and they completely fall flat. There's shows that crushed, and then you bring them the same artist back like a year or 2 later and it falls flat. It's just really, it's hard to put a finger on why it is, but it's just a really fickle tour ticket buying audience. And it's that was by far the biggest challenge that I learned from Elvis, where I came into it thinking like, oh, every act's going to come through here, like this is a major music touring hub. But that's the one thing I learned, was like, wow, it's not always as easy as you think it would be. And we really had to work hard to find what shows would work, what shows didn't work. And I imagine like every venue in Memphis is constantly going through that challenge, because it's tough.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think even now, post-pandemic, selling tickets is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It is a challenge getting, I don't know if it's the same for you in Huntsville, but people are coming back, but it's people are buying more tickets for pop events, like big acts. But in terms of like the medium to smaller acts, people are not buying as many tickets. Something that there's a trend that we've noticed. Okay, so in Graceland, you're heading to Rocket City to make it a music city. And Sound Diplomacy does kind of an audit of here are some of the recommendations to to build this into a music city. But let's back up for a second. The mayor wants this to be a focus. Why music? Why focus on music in Huntsville?
Well, at the end of the day, just we recognize it as a significant quality of life factor, similar to a Parks and Rec department or a trailway system. People, as we're growing our community, like we're now the largest city in Alabama, way past faster than projected. We have more PhDs per capita than any other city in the country currently. Like, it's a very unique city that, not only did we realize the economic value in terms of the music economy, but also the quality of life music brings, and that can also support like our other industries and our citizens here too, to where, if you have a Boeing or a Blue Origin here trying to recruit talent that's also being recruited by other cities, you need things for these people to do. And music is by all the metrics that we've seen, is something that really drives people's decisions on where they want to live. Like, they want entertainment options, especially as people are younger, and then also older though too. You just want things to do when you're not working. You want to and for a lot of people, like going to see concerts and events is one of those outlets, similar to how some people are trail runners and mountain bikers. Like, that's so that's kind of the overall, I guess, high level like summary of it.
Yeah, I love that comparison.
Quality of life and
Yeah.
And workforce development.
Yeah, that's a great comparison of, like trails and public spaces for people to be able, to run or just experience as a way to improve life in the city. And also the connection with, large tech agencies or tech companies that are already stationed there, being able to attract talent and people who want to move to Huntsville. Like you said, 20 years ago, Huntsville looked a little different, and you wouldn't have been as excited as you are to be there today. So then Sound Diplomacy does this audit. Can you talk about what are some of like the 1, 2, 3 initiatives that you are implementing as a way to build up Huntsville as a music city?
Absolutely. And so I'll preface it by saying, so kind of like a timeline of the audit, I think is important. And so the audit results came out at close to the end of 2019. One of the first steps was to establish a Huntsville Music Board, which was established in January 2020. They had their first meeting in March 2020. And then shortly after the board was supposed to come the hiring of the music officer. Well, March 2020, almost right after their first meeting, everything shut down for 2 years. And so the biggest thing that I identified when I first got here was, to take the audit, but the biggest thing is we needed to do was like reinvigorate like the artist and fan enthusiasm here in the community. There hadn't been events for 2 years. The audit was well received and well publicized, but when the results from 2 years before, so it was kind of like just, I noticed like a year one overall initiative was just like generate enthusiasm and get people like hyped and going again. And one of the other things, the big piece that stemmed from the audit was the need for an amphitheater. And so with the amphitheater, our amphitheater opening in May, the Orion Amphitheater, which is one of the most incredible live music venues in the world, frankly. Just all the attention that got, combined with me coming on board, kind of like working behind the scenes to like generate enthusiasm, was really a perfect collision for a successful first year. Because the Orion, the enthusiasm it brought with the opening, just given how long that process was from the approval through city council to the groundbreaking to the first show. Everybody was so excited and continues to be so excited about the shows there, and just programming things around that. Different community meetups. We just had our first, one of the things recommended in the audit, sorry if I'm kind of rambling. One of the things that came up in the audit was that we needed to establish a Huntsville Music Week. And then looking at that, I was like, that's an amazing idea, but I think it's going to be a challenge to really showcase everything that our music scene is about in 1 week. So we extended that to a month, and we actually just completed our first ever Huntsville Music Month this past September. It was a tremendous success.
What does a music month look like? What were some of the activities that you did?
So the kind of theory behind that was we needed something to really showcase both what was already happening here on the local level up to the big tours, and then also wanted to put some building blocks in place for kind of annual things we programmed. And so, we just launched right before Huntsville Music Month, we actually launched the city's music office website at huntsvillemusic.com. And so Music Month just being a month-long celebration of everything within our music scene. So, and we chose that month because there were already some community events that were month-long, both festivals, like we have a Jazz in the Park series that's really well-renowned. We have a Concerts on the Dock at this facility called Low Mill that's every Friday series in the fall that were already there that we kind of had as like pillars and then could fill in things around it. And so in addition, I think there were over 120 events and shows at like venues all over town that the community created. But some of the things the music office programmed to kind of enhance those efforts, where we did a career fair and community expo, where we basically just a big music industry related job fair, and then also had a lot of local nonprofits come in. So if you were to help them connect with potential volunteers and donors. And so that's something that we established that'll be an annual event. One of the coolest things is there's an event called Women in Music Weekend that was on its 4th year here. We actually worked with those event organizers to move it to September to be a big pillar as part of Huntsville Music Month. So we had 4 days, over 30 local female musicians at over 30 venues, just showcasing how awesome our music industry was in that segment, with a big finale show at the Orion on that Sunday. We established doing some career and artist development workshops. We had Kelvin Wooten, who produced Jasmine Sullivan's R&B record that won the Grammy this past year, and then also Ben Lovett from Mumford & Sons. Basically had a panel format with an audience Q&A that our music community could come and participate with that. And we did it at the best like high school theater we have. So we had like high school kids involved in our local school magnet like theater program, like doing the production, which was really cool.
So you've been busy.
Yeah, we had music at city council meetings. We had like big bands come out playing like at our lawn at City Hall, like for people walking
so
out.
You actually had music in a City Hall meeting.
We did, yeah. We had music for people to enjoy leading up to the meeting, and then in the meetings itself, we had a local artist perform the national anthem. We had someone from our Opera Huntsville nonprofit do it one year, and then we had a 9-year-old violinist do it the second. We do 2 meetings a month, and so yeah, incorporated 4 live music performances in the city council meetings. And the next city council meeting will be kind of quiet. So
they're like, bring that back, please. Wow, that's extraordinary, and congratulations. That must have been a ton of work for your team. And I'm just going to drop everyone the website below, huntsvillemusic.com, so you can see what Matt's doing. So you talked about,
and I should say the music month is huntsvillemusic.com/music month.
Okay, great. Yeah. So you talked about the timeline. You've been, obviously COVID put a wrench in everything. Now it's like getting the fans and the population to be excited about the city and events happening, get people out. You just had this big music month. What is kind of what's next on the timeline?
Ooh, I think that doing like more community development, like an artist and career development, is a huge priority. We have to stay in front of the education aspect. We have one of the best education, private and public school systems in the country, which stems from just our community being we're a smart place. It's kind of like our tagline. Like there are so many, like you cannot go anywhere without running into a rocket scientist or a high level engineer here. Like it's very NASA space driven. And so that extends down to like the school system. But as we're growing our music sector, to be able to keep up with that workforce. And so as we're growing, like we need more sound engineers, we need more hands, we need more like set designers for fine arts things. Like we have an amazing talent base in terms of on the stage, but a big focus we have for next year is like really developing our like behind the scenes infrastructure. Like we need more promoters, we need more agents, need more managers to help support. Like the artists are here. And they'll continue to be here, but we need a support system to help elevate those and also create just help build that music economy. Because when we did our job fair, the production companies were the ones who were the quickest to respond, because they can't hire people fast enough with how we're growing. Right.
I mean, it's an interesting issue to have where you have the talent, but you don't have the industry. So it's like, how do you attract the industry to the talent? So with your time in Austin and your time in Memphis and now your time in Huntsville, what are some of the things that you see that worked in Austin, didn't work in Austin, worked in Memphis, didn't work in Memphis, and how you integrate that into, building up Huntsville's music economy, I guess?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway and what's really exciting is that there's cities with music offices and positions similar to mine, but we're really the first city that's on the forefront of, like when Austin established a music office, like Austin had been a significant music hub and music city for decades, similar to like Nashville, similar to Memphis, and a lot of music offices are kind of like through CVBs and things like that. Where Huntsville, we're the first U.S. city to really approach this from a, we're going to conscientiously grow this, and for lack of a better word, like from the start, we have, of course, like an established local scene, local music community, but we're really focused on like getting in that conversation with like a Nashville, Austin, Chicago, when people say like, oh, what are the great U.S. music cities? And we're the first city saying, hey, like we're not close to this yet, but we are going to make the effort to develop us into this. It's not going to come overnight, but it's going to come over time, and we're going to put these building blocks in place that get us there. And I think looking at what's really nice is we can kind of carve our own path. So when you look at there's some great live music sectors in Austin, but then there's some other ones like they call it Dirty Sixth Street, that's just shot bars and just like artists playing for tips, and and it's just
I know the difference.
It's not a true, and so like we can, there's a place for like a block of that atmosphere, but you don't want that to like be the identity of your downtown music scene. And so, like we really want to put a focus on like original music, like the Orion, which is what's really nice is it's kind of set that benchmark where it's like, oh, if you're putting venues in Huntsville, like they need to be world class. And
is the Orion located? I'm not familiar with Huntsville. Is it located in like a central space? Or is the entertainment district spread out, or is it kind of centered around?
So we have 5 different entertainment districts, and we call them Purple Cup districts because if you're leaving a place that serves alcohol, there's purple cups, and you can pour your drink in a purple cup and walk into other establishments, but as long as you have it in the purple cup. That's in the Mid-City district, which up until a few years ago, it was just an abandoned mall. It actually was always appearing on these lists of like, here are the abandoned malls in America lists, and we had a developer come in and really transform that section of the city. And one of the really, and I should preface this, like one of the really cool things about Huntsville is that you're literally not further than 20 minutes from one end of the city to the other. Where if you're downtown, you can get anywhere in about 15 minutes, regardless of where in the city you go to. If you're in the furthest south part of Huntsville, it's probably 23 minutes to the furthest north point. And so the city's very, there's a lot of space, but it's very easy to navigate. And so Mid-City is kind of like very central. That's turning into a big entertainment hub. Like you have places like Top Golf, Dave and Buster's, and other things like in that same corridor as the amphitheater. So that's a huge entertainment district downtown. One of our other city-owned venues is called the Von Braun Center, and that has an 8,000 capacity arena, a 1,500 capacity music hall in it, a concert hall. It's got 4 or 5 different venues. And so the big live music hubs currently are Mid-City and then downtown Huntsville. Okay. But there's live music everywhere though. So Alabama A&M is here, which has one of the most established marching bands and music programs in the country. They're one of the, I think, 6 or 7 bands just invited to participate in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade this year. Yeah. We have Oakwood University, which there's a gospel choir called the Aeolians, which is a lot of people regard as the greatest gospel choir in the world. Like that's in Huntsville. There's so much stuff in Huntsville that a lot of people don't realize is here, where that's another thing I identified about my job is like, man, like I gotta be the, like, people are so humble here where, and it stems, I think, from the intelligence where, you know, the smartest person in the room is never the one telling you how smart he is.
Right.
And that kind of translates to our music community to where it's like, a lot of people in our community are too humble to like stand on the mountain and scream about how awesome they are. But that's definitely my job. So
yeah, and I can imagine. I mean, you're telling the story of Huntsville, and I mean, even the fact. I mean, I had fun kind of looking it up that the rocket that was put in the spaceship that basically brought people to the moon was built in Huntsville.
Yeah,
even that small little history tied into what the music history is, and being able to share with people, because people don't know. Like, we have to educate everyone about why these smaller towns, bigger towns, what is important culturally about this city. So it's it's exciting to hear that they actually have assigned somebody to be that, right, to tell that story that hasn't been told. I also like how you talk about how people don't really talk about how smart they are, and you're kind of like that as well, because you're like, yeah, just I turned around a venue in 6 months, and then I started running a bunch of venues. I mean, it seems like you also have a knack for being able to kind of move quietly but successfully. So congratulations on that. I wanted to say,
and I will say that stems mostly from, I will say that something I'm good at is building teams, and just finding the right people. The parish was, hire the right talent buyer. It took care of itself. And so, make sure people, I was more like, make sure people are ring things up, but I just hired the right talent buyer to turn around, and boom, like I got lucky with that hire.
Yeah. Well, Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I'm looking forward to watching Huntsville, even visiting Huntsville. It's great to see small, these music cities pop up in the U.S. That are focusing on building industry. Obviously, 2112 and CCE, that's what we do in Chicago. We're a creative hub for the industry, for musicians and artists, but also, like you said, the people around it, the video production, the stage production, design, set design. So again, it's been great talking. It was great reading about your work. I'm wishing you the best of luck, and thanks again.
Hey, thank you, and would love to come back.
Awesome. Well, that was a great conversation with Matt Mandrella, Huntsville's music officer. Interesting to think about how to develop a music city in the U.S. What are some of the touch points? There's all these hidden gems, and it seems like Huntsville is one of them. So I would suggest everyone to go check out Huntsville in Alabama. I'll put the website below so you can see what they're doing. Really interesting kind of work of being able to do an audit, figure out what needs to happen, implement it, and then kind of grow from there. Again, my name is Daniel Crane. I'm the program director for the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, and this was another episode of Global Industry Spotlight, a conversational series focused on providing resources and insight for the creative entrepreneur. We are streaming live out of the Comcast Business Startup Studio located at 2112, Chicago's first music, film, and tech incubator. Thank you to Comcast Business and Shore for providing the tools necessary to make our programming possible, and our partner Dell Technologies for startups. Visit CCE Global to register for free workshops offered by our partners. Find us on Instagram and Facebook, and tune in next Thursday for another episode of Global Industry Spotlight with Diego Pinzon, the founder of Dawn Audio. Wishing everyone a wonderful rest of their day. Thank you again for joining us, and we will talk with you next week. Again, we are on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Take care, and we'll talk with you soon. Ciao.